Spoiler warning. The following discussion will contain spoilers. We recommend checking out the movie first, then coming back to hang with us. But if you don't care about that, glad to have you here. Alright everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin.
And I'm John.
And we are your real movie guys. It's March, so that can only mean one thing. Real March Madness. It's a tale as old as time, Pixar versus Disney. In a brawl to end it all, we have selected 8 films from each studio. A total of 16 movies will battle head-to-head for superiority. On today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at Pixar's Ratatouille. A rat who can cook makes an unusual alliance with a young kitchen worker at a famous restaurant. So John, Ratatouille's a thing.
It is.
It's a thing.
People enjoy it.
And I probably should in a lot of ways. Brad Bird directed Ratatouille, and as I've made it clear, Iron Giant is one of my favorite animated features of all time. And The Incredibles is up there too. It is definitely one of my favorite Pixar films. So seeing Brad Bird come back to the pilot seat for this movie, that's all I needed. I didn't need anything else. No matter what you're trying to sell me, I don't care. I didn't even know what it was about. I knew it had a weird name. It's funny because you have to wonder from like a Disney marketing perspective, they probably were terrified of that name. They're like, oh no, what are people gonna... No one could say the name of our movie, which I guarantee was probably the reason we got all those posters with the pronunciation, because Disney's like, oh no, what are we doing here? But going into Ratatouille, I went into this, I was pretty disappointed. I'm not going to lie. A lot of people I know really like this movie. A lot of people consider this like the revitalization of Pixar, getting them back in the saddle. They're being awesome, doing their thing again, changing up the formula. And I think there are some credences to that, and we'll talk about it. But ultimately, for me, this was a really disappointing movie.
I enjoyed this movie, but I wouldn't say that I'm on the side of those other people who say that this brought Pixar back.
Right, because when you look at it, this is probably one of the more popular Pixar movies. It's up there as far as popularity. Whenever I hear that, I kind of like throw my head back and go, all right, well, why is that? That's what we're going to talk about. What makes this movie tick, essentially? I think a lot of people right away when they watch this, I think they actually admire what Pixar did, even if they know it or not. Pixar takes a step outside their comfort zone to tell a unique story beyond their usual format. And that's something you can expect from Brad Bird, and I think that's why I really like him as a writer and director. He takes these almost foreign ideas or strange concepts, but they somewhat relate to you a little bit. I would equate that to like Iron Giant. You were a young kid, you had this imagination of wanting to see a giant robot. It still feels relatable to you in some way. Incredibles is like that too. Superheroes that have normal lives, and what do you do when the superhero is over? He finds something to relate to you. Ratatouille's kind of like that too, where you want to become something, but you're being held back by something, which is ironically the street rat going into a fancy restaurant to become a fancy cook. I can admire what he was trying to do there. I think the overall style of this movie really works that way, and storytelling, because I can admire a lot of the themes that they're going for. I think the idea, the messaging of, you know, making dreams come true, being true to yourself, having creativity and pride in your work, almost feels like Brad Bird's trying to say something. He has such creativity and pride in this film that I think it outshines even a lot of the negativity that I have towards it, because you have to admire how much work went into crafting this. They really recreated France, and it's mesmerizingly beautiful. It's kind of becoming cliche to say, is like, hey, did you see that Pixar movie? It looks absolutely beautiful. Still true every time you say it. The landscapes, one of my favorite scenes, Remy's looking outside the window and he sees the Eiffel Tower, and he's like, oh man, like why would you ever don't give up such a view like this? It's so beautiful. You're in a crap hole apartment, but the view is just so beautiful. It kind of represents towards, I think, the theme they're going for of trying to grab your dream. It's like it's within reach, it's within your vision. All you have to do is go out and grab it. I think that works really well in this movie. The food looks delectable at times, which is weird to say again in an animated movie, that the food looks really good. They really bring an essence and bring all the cooking to life. The small details are really something that astounded me actually on a more recent viewing. When you look at their hands, Colette's hands more specifically, you can see little cuts on her hands from when she was cutting. A chef would do that, right? They're cutting with the knife, and if you slip, you get like a little cut on there. You can actually see that detail in this movie. The rats too. The fur, absolutely incredible. We've come a long way since Sully, I think. It's breathtaking. Good job on Pixar. You can't deny either animation skill. In this movie, it's not afraid to go to the ground level and show the dirty work. Even the ending, which I absolutely love, I know this is really early into the review, they ultimately have to, like, we have to close the restaurant. There's rats working in the restaurant. Like, even though they had a happy review and they had this wonderful ending, it's like, oh, the critic loved everything, it's great. No, you're crazy. We can't do that. We gotta close this restaurant, but we're gonna open something new and tell everybody ahead of time. That's some skill right there to pull off an ending like that, where you had your happy ending, but you kind of like said, nah, that wouldn't happen in real life, so we're gonna do this other thing. And I think that leads to my voice acting. Now, the voice acting I think is really good in this movie. While I'm not a fan of Patton Oswalt whatsoever, he kind of irks me when he voices characters. Overall, I think they did a good job.
I was feeling pretty good about my gift. Until Dad gave me a job. Clean. That's right, cleanerific. Poison checker. Cleanerino.
I actually do really like Lou Romano, who's Linguini. He's really good. A lot of the times he's like muttering to himself. Like you can feel like his non-confidence when he's speaking a lot of the time, where you almost feel bad for him and you can sympathize with his character.
You know, look, I know it's stupid and weird, but neither of us can do this alone, so we gotta do it together, right? You with me? So let's do this thing!
So I think he brings a performance that, as much as I'm not a huge fan of this movie, I actually like the Linguini character a lot because he felt pretty relatable. I can appreciate what they were going for with the characterization.
No, I thought all the characters were good. Breathtaking, I wouldn't say, but like played their part well, I think so.
Horst has done time.
What for?
No one know for sure. He changes the story every time you ask him.
I defrauded a major corporation. I robbed the second largest bank in France using only a ballpoint pen. I created a hole in the ozone of Avignon. I killed a man with this thumb.
I think the only character that really steals the show is Peter O'Toole, who's famous for Lawrence of Arabia, for all my film buffs at home there. He steals the show as Anton Ego. I absolutely love it. And the fact that they crafted such a strong villain in this movie actually goes with Brad Bird's work, where he's done that before too. We had Mansley in Iron Giant. He had Syndrome in The Incredibles. He's kind of had this cast where he creates these very memorable villains. And Anton Ego, we don't get him very much in the movie. You just kind of hear about him. But his reputation's so scary and foreboding to everyone alive that when we finally get him, he lives up to the name with that voice.
I'd like some fresh, clear, well-seasoned perspective. Can you suggest a good wine to go with that?
With, what, sir?
Perspective. Fresh out, I take it.
I am,
Very well. Since you're all out of perspective and no one else seems to have it in this bloody town, I'll make you a deal. You provide the food, I'll provide the perspective, which would go nicely with a bottle of Cheval Blanc 1947.
I'm afraid your dinner selection?
Tell your chef, Linguini, that I want whatever he dares to serve me. Tell him to hit me with his best shot.
And then when they finally get him to be happy and he like has this like almost like rebirth, I would say, at the end of this movie, it's awesome. Some things I want to talk about. The rats. Now, without the rats, we wouldn't have Ratatouille. My issue is this. The rat scenes, why did they need to talk? I feel like in some way, something was lost when they speak. It makes those scenes slogging, kind of weak at times, unnecessary, almost like filler scenes to where I felt like, how much can it be for kids? So we need to put something in that's going to entertain them. What's more entertaining than talking animals? So we'll make the rats talk and they'll have like these scenes together. Why do we need that? It just doesn't fit with the whole rest of the movie, in my opinion. You have this really cool story that you can still tell, and you can still keep some of those rat scenes. I mean, you need the opening to see how like Remy became interested in the cuisine and that whole backstory. You need that. Don't get me wrong, but do you need the rest of it? And does he need to talk throughout the whole thing? If you really wanted to put something in because you were afraid the audience wasn't going to understand your movie, wouldn't have simple narration have worked rather than having them just talk and act like cartoon characters?
I guess, but I think you would still hate it if there was narration. Like, I can totally agree with you where we could have taken out some of the different rat parts and we would have still had a decent movie.
This might have been something from concept to development. Maybe there was some kind of discrepancy between that when that happened. They said, well, what happened if a rat worked at a restaurant? Okay. What else you got? All right, we got to put a whole backstory with a rat. We got to make sure this relates to kids. But I want to have some adult things in there, so we got to counterbalance that. Put even more rat stuff in it. Make them funny. Make them do silly things every now and then.
Why are you walking like that?
I don't want to constantly have to wash my paws. Did you ever think about how we walk on the same paws that we handle food with? You ever think about what we put into our mouths?
All the time.
Ugh, when I eat, I don't want to taste everywhere my paws have been.
The rat stuff just doesn't work, in my opinion. It bewilders me, and it really hurts the pacing. When they came to the rat side stories, especially when they're trying to get food from Remy in the kitchen, he's trying to, like, steal food from that. Like, why is this in here? You're just trying to throw, like, a kink in the whole, like, rat linguini scenario that you're going for here. It's not working for me. You could have just had him get discovered and gone from there. You didn't need to have this whole other side plot shoved into the movie just to add more characters and make it quote-unquote more kid-friendly. This might be more me than anybody else. It's really going to go into it. I don't like the way Remy controls Linguini. I don't like it because it doesn't make sense. Pulling his hair, making his arm moves, no, doesn't make sense to me. I really don't get it. I don't understand how that's a thing. I mean, you had the rat talking. Why couldn't we just go for, like, just telling him what to do? I know you wanted to make it visually appealing, and again, this is probably more of a me thing, but when I see him pull his hair and work him like a puppet doing all these crazy things, like, what was that? Something disconnects for me, and I don't know what it is. I just can't find myself enjoying it.
No, I totally agree with that too. Like, it's a weird thing where, like, you understand, like, he's in control, but, like, you could just whisper in his ear to tell him to do things.
Maybe that, I don't know.
Like, something.
I get why they
like,
did it.
What you did.
Because it's more visually entertaining, right? It's a feast to the eyes when you see this guy, like, flying around, doing different things and throwing things into a pot, has no idea what's going on. It makes more sense, and it's more entertaining for the children. But at the same time, I don't know why. Again, this is a very, like, odd thing maybe to nitpick, but it just bothers me.
Watching this.
Yeah, for the children that aren't watching this, because it doesn't feel like it's made for them to begin with. But I feel like Brad Bird is almost taking his ideas and saying, well, I really want to make this story, but I got to make it super kid-friendly because of Pixar. So these are the things I have to put into my movie a little bit. You know, maybe these were conscious decisions by him, but it feels like these were kind of just, like, crowbarred in a little bit to be like, all right, make sure this is kid-friendly. You can do what you want, but make sure it's kid-friendly at the end of the day. So I think we're at that point where we're going to give our final scores. I'm going to give Ratatouille a C+.
This can't just happen. The whole thing is a setup. The boy knows. Look at him out there, pretending to be an idiot.
This isn't my favorite Pixar movie. I hate to say it, but it feels a little undercooked to me. I was saving that. It was in the back pocket the whole time. You have no idea how much I wanted to say that. I love Brad Bird. I think he does amazing work with animation. He's going to keep doing amazing work. This isn't a bad movie by any means. I think it is worth a watch. The idea is there. I think there is something special about this movie. I think maybe just the concept excited people, and yeah, they got a good dose of it, but I don't think it's the masterpiece a lot of people, I feel like, tend to think it is. Again, it's a little undercooked to me. I wish this could be something better. I think the rat characters just bog down the pace, and you could do so much more. We've seen it with WALL-E when we watched that movie. You don't need every character to be a magical talking creature to understand the plot. I think Pixar maybe realized that, and they've kind of changed their ways as they've gone down the line since then. But we have to respect our audience a little more, and sometimes I feel like Ratatouille just doesn't respect the audience in that regard. John? Where do you stand with this film?
Well, on the food scale, I would give this a medium well.
Oh.
I give this a B+.
Hey,
I think it's a decent movie. I think it's a good movie. I mean, maybe it's not for kids per se, but I think it has just enough stuff to keep people entertained, and, like, it was a good story all out. Like,
yeah, I can agree with that. It seemed
like it had one of those stories that you were just intrigued with.
No, it has a good story. Got a little bit of mystery. It has a little bit of everything in it. I don't know what it is, and it's not bad for kids. I want to stress that. It's not a bad movie for kids. Kids will have a good time. They're going to enjoy it. It's just when you look back to it and you really think about, like, who was this for? It wasn't for me, obviously.
Obviously not.
Obviously not.
Not Kevin's taste.
I do want to try the actual dish, Ratatouille. I'm really curious. I've never actually seen it on the menu. Something I'm keeping an eye out, though, for. If I ever go to a French restaurant someday, it's on my list. It's going to be an interesting battle. We got Ratatouille going up against maybe one of the greatest Disney movies of all time, The Lion King. Oh, boy. Good luck with that.
Kevin will be at your local French bistro now.
Oui, oui. On that note, John, where can the people find us at home?
You can find us over on YouTube. The Real Movie Guys over on YouTube. Like our channel, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified when we put stuff up. You can also follow us all over on Twitter. We put things out every once in a while. We let you know what's coming up and things that are interesting to us out there. You can also follow us over on Instagram, where we put out sometimes polls and other things that intrigue us and things that maybe sometimes you'll get to know us a little bit better from that. You could also listen to us on many podcasting platforms, such as...
Yes, for your listening pleasure, we are also available in podcast form at iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcast, Overcast, Breaker, Radio Public, and Pocket Casts. Be sure to give us a listen at any of those fine places. If you already are right now, hey, we greatly appreciate it. Just search Real Movie Guys, we should pop right up. Thank you again all so much for joining us for this episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin, that guy over there, he is John. We are your Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. The battle rages on as Real March Madness, Disney vs. Pixar continues. We'll catch you next time.
See ya!